This is Doug, and welcome to another episode of the Practicing Accountant podcast. Today, I'm going to be sharing a story. It's not my story, it's the story of one of my clients and some of the work that he has done to accelerate his vision, where he can get to $1 million, not in the 3 or 4 years he thought, but as soon as next year, and some of the steps he took to accelerate his progress towards his goals and his vision for his firm. I hope you enjoy this episode. It's getting dark early. That's what I know.
I got a question. It seems like the time changes and we're supposed to lose an hour. I feel like it went from going dark at 7 to going dark at 4. I think someone's lying to us. I think there's a 3-hour drop in there somewhere.
Right? It's like starting to lean a little bit too more heavily towards nighttime than daytime.
Yeah, miserable this time of year. Until Christmas, I don't like it.
Well, it just drags you down, right? Just kind of puts you in a mindset of just like, oh, well, might as well go home. And it's like,
Yep.
wait, no, it's not even 5 o'clock yet. What are you doing?
Yeah.
Well, it sucks for me because I walk home and, I'm used to walking home in like sunshine and warmer weather. And now it's freaking cold and dark and scary. And I'm worried about getting run over by somebody or if someone come and beat me up or something. I don't live in a neighborhood where someone would come beat me up, but
you never know.
It's dark. You never know
right.
these days, right?
That's right.
Get beat up by anybody these days. It's
Yeah.
scary. Yeah, the old daylight savings time argument is one that does. It feels like that's something that just shouldn't be an argument. Like, let's just decide on it and move on. Like, why is that still something? Think about the legal dollars that have gone in to figuring out whether we should stick daylight savings time or not.
Well, the reason nothing's changed is simply because that it makes money. It makes clicks on news stories.
Totally.
It makes people money with the any controversy makes money, so they won't get rid of it.
I need to come up with some controversy. Well, that's what influencers live by, right? I mean, influencers, that's how they get their audiences, is they say something controversial or do something controversial or always kind of go against the positive, like bring up the negative and lobby for the negative, and then everyone jumps on the bandwagon.
Yep. Anything sensational, it sells.
Maybe we need to be more sensational.
Yeah, we're working on that.
We're working on that? Okay, we're working on that. Well, I wanted to share today, not really anything, well, maybe. So, in these conversations, we talk about, being intentional, about networking, about selling, about, niche working and niching and having a vision, getting the right clients, getting rid of the wrong clients, all that stuff. But I think today just kind of share a story about one of my clients who I won't name, but just share a little bit about his story and what he did. And just to kind of get to the punchline, he had a goal. I think it was a 3-year goal, maybe a 4-year goal, to get to $1 million of revenue for his firm. He's got a small firm. It's him and another a new partner, and then maybe a couple staff or mercenaries. But the goal was in 3 or 4 years to get to $1 million. And through some of the work that we've done, and which is to say, the coaching, he does all the real work. So all the credit really goes to him. But through the work that we are doing, he's created a path so that he's going to hit $1 million probably within the next, I don't know, maybe a month.
Wow.
So call it 2 or 3 years ahead of schedule.
It's not bad.
Yeah, it's not bad, right? May cause some resource concerns, but he's working on that too.
Sure.
But how do we get there? I think is maybe just what I want to share a little bit of today, and just maybe proof is in the pudding, but also just to reinforce some of the things that you and I talk about so frequently.
Yep.
As it being a really good path towards creating what you want in your business. So when we started working together, we got to know one another. We talked about his firm, what he wanted to accomplish. And when we first started working together, he may have had an idea of what niche he wanted to work in, but he couldn't articulate it as well. He didn't say it out loud. For some reason, it's for some people, it's just hard to say their niche out loud.
Yeah.
Almost like they're afraid someone's going to hear, right?
Mm.
And if they say,
that would be awful.
Yeah, right. but that's part of the reason why they don't want people to hear is they don't want to leave anyone out.
Yeah.
They don't want to say, I only work with, doctors and then have a dentist hear that,
Mm.
because the dentist would be like, well, I guess you wouldn't work for me. And of course he would,
Right.
but we're still somewhat afraid to say that out loud or really lean into it. But he was in a position where he was a little bit uncomfortable saying it out loud. We got to the point that he was. One of the key things for him has been his networking. So for him, he would classify, or we would classify networking events into two categories: comfortable or uncomfortable. And comfortable networking was where he went to lunch with someone that he knew from a previous life, or someone he had some acquaintance with, or just someone that was on the same level as he was. And so it was a more comfortable conversation. You
Mm-hmm.
know, you had a history to talk about, you had events to update each other on, and then you would catch up on work and stuff like that. And then the uncomfortable networking would be where he was in a large group or a large place, like an event, or meeting with someone that he hadn't met before, or maybe for whatever reason, maybe I don't know if intimidated by is the right word, but maybe just not feeling as comfortable in the
Right.
conversation. So those were the two categories we had: comfortable and uncomfortable. But he was spending a lot of time in the comfortable networking. So he was meeting folks he'd met with before, and sharing conversations he'd probably had before. So the first thing we did is try to get him into some uncomfortable situations, big events, having to kind of do not an elevator speech because I don't like that, but just introducing himself in a cold audience, or going to lunch with someone that he didn't have a prior relationship with. So we started to lean into that. But then the big moment came when he was able to articulate his niche, say it out loud, and then bring in the niche working, where instead of meeting with a wide audience that served, whoever, clients, he started really dialing into the niche and who was in the network of that niche. And in doing so, some great things happened. First of all, he went to a big room event surrounded by potential clients.
Mm.
Like, kind of like from Top Gun. It's like that target rich environment, right?
Yeah.
Like he's just surrounded by opportunities. And each of them were interested in what he did. And, he was throwing out business cards and making connections.
What was it?
And
A conference or a industry
association
event?
group. It was an
Association group.
association. So
Okay.
it was like an industry group.
Mm-hmm.
So it was his industry, his niche, and a group of people that are all in it.
Mm.
And so he was able to go to this and make some great connections. He was also then able to target certain individuals that knew his prospects really well and set up an uncomfortable conversation with them. But when he came out of it, he'd have two or three names. And then he started going to some individuals who were very well connected in just industry in general, and he was able to articulate what it was he was looking for, and they were able to make connections for him to individuals who served his niche or were his niche. And then they introduced him to like his prospect service providers, like insurance agents or bankers or lawyers that served his niche, and he started talking to them. So through this effort, by really dialing in on his niche, and B, then using that to niche work, and C, having more uncomfortable conversations. So 1, 2, C.
Yeah.
He started creating some opportunities for himself, and then things just started to happen. Folks were looking, and the services he provide aren't like rare or extremely unique. They have his own brand and touch on them, of course, but people started reaching out, and he's going into this month not quite sure how he's going to staff things in January. And of course, that becomes an issue, and he's working on it. But he was able to then make a partner out of it because he needed a partner to help him serve. He was able to make at least one hire out of it. He needs maybe another one or two. But he's going into this new year with likely having met the goal that he had set for years ahead.
Where was his starting revenue, if you don't mind sharing that,
Um,
when he met you or came to you with this?
Top of my head, I want to say it was I probably have the notes. It was probably like 4 or 5, 6,
Okay.
something like that.
So almost doubled.
Yeah. And again, I don't take credit for him doubling, but our work that we did led to him, getting out there and creating the right kind of conversations that led to the right kind of opportunities, which led to him selling and connecting, to the point where he's getting there. And at the same time, there's a lot of life things going on for him at the same time. He was able to manage too, which I'm real proud of him for doing. But this is a story that, like, what's the lesson here, or the takeaway? Like, again, he got intentional, and that's something you and I talked about recently. He got intentional about his networking. And one of the things that I see more often than not is CPAs are not intentional about networking.
Right.
And what I mean by that is that they reach out to someone they're comfortable with. They react to someone who asked, but they're not sitting down and saying, who is it that I can meet with that's going to give me the best kind of client experiences, or provide me with a better client experience, or knows the type of clients that I really want to work with. And they're not putting, one of the first things I do when I work with a client is I go and I check on their LinkedIn profile. And if I could average it, which I haven't, but on top of my head, it's like the average number of connections for some of the CPAs I work with is like 300. Now, I'm not saying that's a bad number, but I will say it's a lower number. You want to be above 500. Just if nothing else, it shows up and says you've got more than 500 connections when you check your profile, because it doesn't count specifically after that. It does count followers, but not connections. But that's one of the first things I look at, and it's always just so surprising to me that they're not leveraging LinkedIn.
Yeah.
But when I was a partner in public, I didn't use LinkedIn. It was an annoyance. And that was mostly because, the work was kind of coming to me. It wasn't really me going to it. And that's good, because it gives you that sense of, I'm growing and I'm bringing in clients. And it's bad because it may be the right kind of, or the wrong kind of clients, and maybe the wrong kind of growth.
Yep.
And that's where the intentional piece of his journey, my client's journey, was so critical. And it was just so fun to see him, because two things happened. Like, one, he recognized, wow, when you niche work, when you really go to where your niche is, it really creates some opportunities. And he was really excited about that. But two, he didn't have to go all the other networking bullshit he was doing.
Wasting time.
Yeah, because he realized that there's a lot of those conversations, comfortable ones, that he was having and kind of checking the box on a list of things to do. But he didn't necessarily have to have those anymore. So he'd have more time back. And he can focus on where those target-rich environments are, and get more return for his time. Yep. And more growth.
Yep. A couple takeaways I have from that is, the first is admit your niche.
Yeah, right.
That I think people not only have a hard time, maybe most firms have an idea of what their niche might be just based on sort of the trends of their current client list. But they won't admit that niche because they're afraid of losing out if they're not a generalist. So admitting your niche is great. And we've talked about this before. Just because you niche doesn't mean you can't serve other clients. You could easily just set up a different URL, different landing page for that niche, and then a generalist landing page for all the other people that come through. That's what we do. We have our niche side, and then we have our general side, and we have about, 75% niche, the rest in just general random clients. But we send them to just a different website, all in the same company. It's just the marketing message is just different. That's all it is. The other thing I took away from that is articulate your offer. Figure out what you're offering to the niche and be able to articulate that well. And if you can do that, then you can probably be more comfortable in those uncomfortable situations if you're going into those with a well-articulated offer.
Well, there's a couple other things as you were talking that highlighted for me some other things I didn't mention. He's currently doing a certain kind of service that he no longer wants to do. And he acquired it a number of years ago, and he's been trying to get rid of it. And it's the thing that's really causing him to be close to burnout. in busier times. And it's stuff in some ways he's uncomfortable doing. But because of his effort, to really grow in this other area and the niche work and to get out there and to create these conversations and to admit his niche and to own his niche and to act like it his niche, he's about a year away from being able to dump that entire area of his business.
Nice.
And he might monetize that. He might sell it to someone and, take someone from it, or he might just give it away. We haven't necessarily gotten to the final decision on that one, but he, two things. Let's just say he's got 300 clients in this service area. He can probably get rid of 80% of them on April 16th next year. And the 20% he retains, he might retain just because of relationships or opportunities or whatever. But he's going to be in a position to just dump a significant amount of work because of what he's backfilled it with his efforts. So he's creating more of an experience in his business that he wants to have rather than what he feels like he just needs to have to provide for his family.
Yep.
So I love that part.
You bet. You kind of talked about your coaching, and you were careful not to take credit for anything that he did when you're talking about that. But at a high level, can you explain the coaching process and how you help him get to those benchmarks ahead of time?
Just being really curious. And I know that sounds goofy, but that's my job. My job is to understand my clients. My job is to talk to them like no one else can. Now, I've often joked like I'm kind of like their partner. Like accounting partner, not like, partner.
Sure.
But like they're kind of their silent partner. And so I join with them. I plan with them. I look at the future with them. I ask them what they want, how they want it to be different. And then we start working on those things. And I create a space which is just really hard for them to find, which is a place to be intentional, a place to really, dream about what they want their experience in accounting to be. And then I bring in accountability too. I assign homework after every session. Like, you need to meet with this 5 different people. You need to join this thing. You need to try this thing. You need to fire these things. I create some accountability and I work with them too. But then I'm consistent. I show up every couple of weeks or every month at least, and ask them how it's going, where we're at. I become that kind of that silent partner to them. And the truth is they don't have anyone.
Right.
They might share the conversations with their spouses. They might talk to their buddies. They might, vent to another service provider in the same industry, but they don't have someone that they can really, really speak to about what's going on in their firm.
So they get a business partner without giving up equity.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I'm an equityless partner.
It's not a bad deal.
I'm a service partner, I guess you'd call me.
There you go.
And because I do take some compensation for my services, but
Right.
not income. I actually have, I've mentioned this before, but I've got one client, and this is kind of off topic, but kind of not. I've got one client who, in accounting, and he started to take revenue sharing or profit sharing from his clients in lieu of fees. So instead of paying me whatever a month, you got to give me 5% of your top or 5% of your bottom. And he's working with people that are growing and getting bigger. And so I'm excited to see where this ends up for him, because he may have just figured out like the new evolution of pricing models for accountants.
Yeah.
Maybe I should be on the front end of pricing models for coaches and start telling my clients, you don't need to pay me, but I need 5% of whatever growth we create or something like that.
Yeah. I've thought about that pricing model for accounting firms. It's really enticing if they're a startup, not so much if they're fairly established.
Yeah. So I guess back to your question on the coaching. So have you ever had like a retreat where you go and you kind of talk about where you're going and where you've been and what you need to do and what your plans are and what your growth is and all that stuff?
No.
Have you ever had one of those?
No, not really.
So some firms have those mechanisms where they, it's usually when there's multi-partner and they get together and they talk about where we're at, where we're going, what we need to do, that kind of thing. And they do it, once or twice a year. So I kind of create that same experience, but with teeth. So, We talk about where they're at. We talk about what they're wanting to do, what they need to stop doing, what they need to do more of. And then I let them loose. And instead of it being an annual retreat, they have to come back and see me in 2 to 4 weeks. And we have another retreat, but it's now in a new place after them doing what they've done, progressing the way they are. And so, that level of focus on their business allows that business to go where it wanted to go faster than it otherwise would have gone.
You're forcing them to do the deep work that they might not otherwise do.
Yeah, forcing strong. I'm encouraging.
Sure.
but I kind of call myself an accelerator, and in this case, with my client that we've been describing here, I've accelerated kind of his growth,
Yep.
or helped facilitate that acceleration. But with a lot of my clients on whatever topic, I'm accelerating their progress because it's become something we're doing now, not something I'll do someday or later.
Yep.
And so they just get to see the results sooner.
Yep. Yeah. If you have accountability with anything, if you make goals and never tell anybody, you probably aren't going to achieve those goals. And I think that's the value of a coach or any sort of accountability partner is airing that goal.
I just hit a goal with a client this week. We had this is the depth that I go. So on top of a lot of things that this client was working on, his personal health was one of them. And so he and I have been exchanging texts every day for the last month or so. And we just achieved our goal this week, which was he wanted to do 30 burpees by 7 a.m. every morning. And so, we do 3 sets of 10. And so for weeks, it was like I did 2. And then it was like I did 1 set of 9. And then I did 2 sets of 8. And then this week it's 3 sets of 10. So, that's the accountability you're talking about. Like just having a text that shows up and said, here's what I did today. And then they're like, shit, I got to do it too. And then they do it. And, but that same thing, burpees or revenue, they're the same to me.
Yeah. Yeah. That external stimulus is pretty powerful.
Mm-hmm.
When you're a solo firm.
Yeah. So, the story today is a real one. It's an exciting one. And I think at the end of the day, the thing that I'm most excited for this client to have the ability to do is choose.
Yeah.
He can choose if he gets to $1 million here in the next month or not. He can say, I'm going to, I see I can get it now, and I'm just going to kind of adjust my lifestyle as I'm growing and not make it too crazy. I can get rid of some clients that I don't want and slow it down a little bit if that's what I'd like to do. But he has that power now. And I think and I'm really proud of him for all that he's doing. But I'm most proud of him for being in a position where he can choose how he experiences his business and not let the clients dictate how he chooses to experience his business.
That's freedom. That's why you started a business, was to be able to choose.
Totally. Right.
Yep.
It's your firm. It should be reflective of what you want it to look like.
Yep. Awesome, dude.
So that's my story today.
Cool. I appreciate you.
Yep. Take care.
See ya.
Thank you for watching this episode of the Practicing Accountant Podcast. I hope you enjoyed this story. I hope maybe that you had a chance to relate to some of the circumstances described and some of the opportunities and lessons that we shared from the story of my client. And I hope that you use some of those things. I hope you're able to achieve more of what you want in your business and life with these lessons and accelerate your own vision. As always, please share or like this episode. Stay tuned for the next one. And thank you very much again for watching this episode of the Practicing Accountant Podcast.